What's going on, guys? Welcome to me and Corey hanging out today. I'm the Money Talk Show with Dane, where we talk about all sorts of interesting topics having to do with money. So, if those are things that you like, come check out my channel, like and subscribe. All that stuff helps the algorithm. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Corey.
Absolutely. Corey Geary with Crypto Millionaires with Corey Geary. Same, come over to my channel. We're going to be talking everything crypto, mainly around the RH ecosystem and security and how to really follow my journey in crypto and create the exact same kind of results. So like and subscribe, same kind of thing. And what we talking about today, Dane?
And we've got all sorts of cool things to talk about. Let's talk about Hedron and Icosa. I think that's what we're most excited about for the time being. There's lots of things we could cover, but let's start there.
Very
Holy
successful
cow.
week.
The yield this week has been absolutely insane. For those of you that maybe aren't as familiar, the yield simply is like the interest that you're earning for staking your crypto. Staking is simply like taking your money, putting it at the bank in a CD and earning interest for holding it, locking it up in a CD for time. You can do the same thing with crypto, depending upon the projects. And specifically with Hedron and Icosa, that's what we're excited about right now. We've been able to do that with our tokens, and the returns, or maybe I technically can't say returns. The yield that the pools have produced has been exponential. So let's talk about that. Give me your thoughts and feelings, Corey.
Absolutely, man. It's been a very phenomenal week. The first day of inception of the auctions or when everything was coming out, and the yield was 35%. That's what the yield was on the first day.
In one day.
One day was 35%. So if you'd have had 10 grand worth of Icosa in there, or 10,000 Icosa, because they're trading about $1 each. It's anywhere from 85 cents to a dollar 10 cents. Is where the Icosa has been trending recently. You had 10,000 in there, you would have made 3,500 of them back into the pool, which is really cool. That
On
is
top, that's on
on
top of
top
your principal. So once again,
on
it's
top of
like
your
earning
principal.
interest, right?
Yeah, and plus you would have got a little bit of Hedron bonus there too. I didn't calculate what the Hedron APY is because it's not nearly as lucrative as the Icosa APY, but it's a little extra on top. It's the cherry on top, man. So it's pretty insane how you stake Icosa and you're getting both of these assets. A lot of people are thinking, "Oh, where's the yield come from? That's got to be a Ponzi. How can that be possible?" Well, it's not, because what happens is there's these auctions where people are buying hex stakes. I'm going to try to keep this simple as possible. When they're buying these hex stakes, they're having to use Hedron to bid on these auctions, and this Hedron, half of it, well, not in the auctions, all of it is burnt. And so it's removing supply, and then basically it's converting, or you would say the contract is doing this math equation to how much Icosa is going to be paid out to the staker class.
Right.
And so it's removing supply and then giving some back to the staker class, but more supply is being removed on the Hedron side. So, and they're both locked together, Hedron and Icosa. Actually, Hedron, Icosa, and Hex are, but it's a really interesting game theory that Alex created. So that's how the yield is created. Also, the yield's created when somebody sells a hex stake into the Icosa contract to receive Icosa. The yield is created because the Icosa contract, and I know this might be a little more in depth, but it will borrow all the Hedron out of the stake. Half of that borrow is burnt. The other half is paid to the staker class. So another place where the yield is coming from.
That's perfect. So think about it. So think about it going to like an auction at the county courthouse steps for a house, or a car
Very
auction.
simple.
But when you go there, you have to have a certain currency just to participate. And if you don't have that currency, you can't participate in the auction. That's how these auctions work. You have to have Hedron, which is the correct currency to participate in the auction. And like Corey said, the amount of Hedron that people use to buy hex stakes in this auction determines the yield that's paid out to the people that have Hedron and Icosa staked during that time frame. Long story short, the more that is used, the more Hedron used in the auctions, the larger the yield for the stakers during those periods.
Correct.
So
That's absolutely correct. You kind of very simplified it, and it's just an amazing ecosystem in itself, right? And you got these auctions going on. I've been participating in the auctions. They've been a lot of fun.
so let's talk about that a little bit more. You'd posted on Facebook how you'd made, and of course, like we don't need to talk about the
Talk
real dollar
numbers.
value
We
specifics,
could
but
talk
you'd said,
percentages, right?
yeah.
I
But
was
you'd
able to,
said that you'd made, and this was a big deal. I had a lot of
yeah.
people reach out, and they're like, "What's going on?" And your post blew up. You said that in one day you'd made more money in crypto in that one day than you had the whole time in your time
Correct.
in crypto. Talk about that.
It's amazing. Well, my crypto journey has been I think a little bit rough in the beginning. I think a lot of people's crypto journey was rough in the beginning. You got to learn the hard way,
Yeah,
right? I bought the
great.
top in November. And so, I've been riding that top down, just getting wrecked. And now I've been able to learn and figure out through a lot of due diligence. And I recommend everybody do their own due diligence. Don't listen to just us. We're just a couple guys talking crypto, but do a lot of due diligence in finding out what protocols work really well and what are being created in this bear market. Because that's when bear markets are made for creating and building bags. That's what bear markets are for. Bull markets are for marketing and selling your bags. This is what everyone gets backwards.
Right.
Everyone gets this backwards. But so, yeah, man, it's
So they freaking get excited when Bitcoin's back on the news, and
oh,
that's when everyone starts
it's
buying
going to
in.
100K, and it's like
And they do
that's why
nothing right now. And when most people are like, crypto's a scam and it
when
doesn't work.
when
Right.
people are saying crypto is dead and it's done, it's a scam, that's a time to look at it and go, okay, it's time to get in. And that's why we've been so lucky with this Hedron and Icosa protocol. So to talk a little about it, yeah, man. When the obviously we talked about the yield. The yield was one place where I made a significant amount of money. 35% is a pretty big deal. I have a
Oh, in a
substantial
day. Like,
all
where
in
do
a
you get
day,
that?
all in a day, right? The
Where do you
next
get
day
that?
was like, I think the next day was 15%. If I didn't do the calculations on the second day, but I heard it in the Telegram chat. I think it was 15, and then it was like, I mean, we've been consistently hovering between 5 and 10 a day right now, which is
A
still
day.
massive. Like
A freaking
5
day.
5% a day. Like if we go
Mhm.
on the conservative side, like what in the traditional finance world will ever pay something like that? And you got to look at it as like we're kind of like part owners in the auctioneer house. That's the best way I like to think of it as. And we're making a lot of the profits off of the auctioneer house. We got a stake in their kind of in that business model, even though it's not a business. But that's kind of the way you can
That's a good
envision it.
analogy. I like it.
Yeah, we have an ownership in this auctioneer house. And so, so even 5% a day is just absolutely massive. So obviously we made a lot there, right? And that was one sector. But I've been participating in the HSI auctions, and I've gotten lucky. It takes a lot of time. It took me 18 hours to get lucky. I was in the auctions literally for 18 hours. My wife was going to kill me. I mean, she was like, I'm on the computer all day long, making bids, getting outbidded, just analyzing every single HSI stake. You got to crunch the numbers, make sure the numbers make sense. What's the highest you want to bid? When you're bidding against these guys, because you got some pretty big players in there. People have a lot of money that are playing in there. The Hetzikins are a very rich community, and so I'm in there participating, and I got frustrated, man. I'll tell you the truth. I closed my laptop. It was like 11 o'clock at night. And I closed my laptop. I'm like, man, I'm just not winning any of this. The wife was frustrated with me. And I'm on the Telegram. And, I'm always got the Telegram on in the background because when some alpha comes out, I want to hear what's going on. And sometimes that's how I catch stuff.
Right.
And once again, I caught something. Someone's like, hey, looks like someone just bought a steak for 30% off. And I was like, I haven't seen no 30% off. I've been in this damn thing for 18 hours. Open my computer back up. And I was actually thinking about sending all my Hedron back and staking it so I can at least get the yield for that day. Because I knew I was going to miss out on the yield by having all this Hedron on stake. And that was my next action. But I was like, okay, let's go in the auctions one more time, take a look. And I saw a pretty heavy stake. I don't want to really talk about numbers, but I was able to buy that stake for 70% off. 70% off. And I was like, I won that stake. I could not believe it. I was screaming in my room. My wife was like, what's going on? I showed my wife. My wife was like, oh, and she was happy for me. She was like, ah, man, and then she understood why, I was going through so much, why I was on the computer all day and, what was going on. And she was celebrating with me. And I won that one. And then I went in there and I won another one for like 30% off. And I was like, holy crap, it was just amazing. And then so that was like a medium-sized one. And then I won a real small one. And then so this happened from about a course of an hour. And I was like, so it was really weird. I don't know what was going on in the marketplace there. Because after that hour, I stopped winning them.
Right.
I feel like people were.
No, we hit the lag. Yeah, we hit the lag.
There was a sweet spot. And I was just like, oh my word. So yeah, so I'm popping in there. I was in there last night. I heard another strategy that I give a executioner this props on this strategy. He was like, what you want to do is go in there and activate the auctions late at night, and that way you have a 20 after you bid on the first bidder on a stake. They have to wait 24 hours before that stake can be yours, because it gives time for other people to bid on the stake. And I think it also gives time for if it's somebody's stake that owes money on, it gives them time to make good on it during that 24 hours. I think that's why that 24-hour period is there. But yeah, so I went in there. I went in 2 nights ago. I activated 3 medium-sized stakes. I was like, I like these ones, right? I'm like, I activate 3 of them, and then last night they overbid it retail.
No, I was the same. I tried the same strategy. I had 12. I was like, these 12 fit what I'm looking for.
You like them, yeah, you like them.
I activated all 12 of them, and I was like, we'll see how the market plays. I had like my ratio. For me, I wanted to buy stuff at 80% of value or less. They all went up over that, so I let somebody else have them, which was fine. Those guys still got decent deals. Like they got them for 85 to 90%. So like that's not bad.
There's something to be said because
the lag time frame that we hit. And in fact, we talked about this before. I said, I was like, I think it's gonna be just like fantasy basketball, where I don't know if there's any fantasy sports people out there. I'm a big one. But if you do an auction draft, usually there's a ton of money spent early. And then if you wait and you're patient, somewhere towards the middle, back half of the draft, you can get really good deals during the bidding. And this was the same way. I think there's just a lot of people that got worn out or frustrated like you're feeling, because some of those freaking stakes were going for a premium at the beginning. People were spending way too much Hedron.
Meaning that you could go and buy that hex off the market and stake it yourself for cheaper than what you were buying the stake for in the auction. So it didn't make any sense. Like at that point, it's like people just pushing their weight around for the fun of it, because they have the money to do so. And some of those guys do. Some of those guys have billions among billions of Hedron, where they're able to just kind of, push their weight around. So,
yeah, but it's been fun. What did I get? I got a couple for 70% of value during that same time frame. I got a medium one and a smaller one. Nice. So that's been good. Nice. Let's talk about, so we went
let's touch on one more thing before we move on there, because let's talk about this. 50% of all these stakes won have been turned back into the Icosa contract.
Is it 50%?
It's about 50%.
That's a bunch.
Meaning in 90 days from, it was the 13th, I believe. Yep. 90 days from the 13th, which is in January. It'll be around January 13, maybe a couple days before or after. We'll see another big giant influx of HSI stakes again. And, we'll be able to go in there and bid. And that's just the recycled. You also got people who turned in new ones because they wanted to partake in the yield that was going on at that time. Right. So, we're going to still have a very great opportunity coming up in January to go back in and rinse and repeat this, I think.
Oh, I think it's going to be nuts. Let's talk about, there's a few different things I want to talk about. You and I did 2 different things with our stakes that we won. For me, I Oh, the freaking yield in the Icosa pool has just been nuts. And I've already got a hex staking ladder and all that type of stuff.
Yep.
And I just let's talk about thought process behind recycling the stakes that you got at a discount versus not. This was my thought process. So I got a few stakes at about a 70% discount. I could go sell those back to the Icosa contract. I could get a lot of Icosa for my money, and then I could go stake it and get the yield that we've been getting. And once again, some of the freaking days have been as high as 35% in a day. Others as low as 5, bro. Like 5% a day. Like
5
where are you
all
gonna
day.
get that? These stupid traders that claim that like they're day trading and making, they're like 1% to 2% a day. Like, dude, you're freaking getting 5% a day without having to do anything but be staked at a minimum right now, which is nuts. Now, of course, it's not financial advice. That could change in the future,
probably
do your own due diligence. Yeah.
We all know that when you're early to a project, which is it's key to be early to any project, and if it's successful, even when it's successful and it moves forward, that there's a diminishing returns,
right?
Not only from the yield, but there's also when price pumps, there's always a diminishing return year after year after year, or bear or bull market after bull market after bull market. We saw it in Bitcoin. Bitcoin does maybe it'll do a 2 or 3x this next bull market, but man, it's done over a 6 million x over the life cycle of the project, right? So like you have this diminishing S curve, and it's with anything. It's with the price appreciation or the yield that you're generating out of the protocol sometimes, just depending.
Right.
So
exactly.
yeah.
So my thought process is with the fact that there's diminishing returns over time in a staking pool, that I would rather have more in there now to be able to reap the rewards over the next, call it a year, who knows, but over the next year, I want to be able to capture as much of that yield as possible. And I'm not like the stakes that I won, they're staked out for 15 years. I'm like, I'm not going to hold this thing for 15 years. And so let's go ahead and recycle it, get the
But you don't need to. They're HSI stakes.
True. But what are your options with an HSI stake? You can sell it on OpenSea as an NFT, or you can sell it back to the Icosa contract, get the Icosa, and either restake it or dump it. Those are your two options to liquidate the thing, right?
Correct. That is correct.
So I chose to go the Icosa route. I sent it back to the contracts and staked staked all of that so I could reap the rewards of the yield that I'll be able to get for the next, that was a fair amount. So it forced me to be staked out for 360 days. And I'm fine with that. I like that. And I'll get the copy on Pulsechain to boot. So that was my thought process, but give yours. Yours was different.
My thought process is a little bit different. So like, I got really lucky in that really big one. Like I was just like, this is amazing. It was a gift, and it was essentially like buying like hex at a penny or a little less than a penny, right? That was essentially what I got it for. I don't think, in my opinion, we will ever see hex at a penny on the Ethereum blockchain. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. Don't shoot me. It's just an opinion. I think we have a market maker in the system who is keeping hex pretty stable. Anytime we see it wick down, it immediately bounces back up and gets around that 3-cent range. But it could change. Who knows? But it's my opinion. So I'm like 1 cent hex, and it's staked out 5555. It was staked out 3 months ago. So I got that T-share rate from 3 months ago. It's like going into the past 3 months and restaking that hex out of 1 cent cost basis. So I was able to travel back in time 3 months and get hex for 1 cent and stake it for 5555. That's the way I looked at it. I'm like, okay, so the opportunity on that, and for me, everything always leads back to hex, because if we believe, because Hedron and Icosa is built on top of hex. Even Pulsechain was created for hex. Everything in around this ecosystem is built on top or around for hex. So if everything always leads back to hex, then basically the end game, if we believe in the system, we should be acquiring more T shares, acquire more hex. That should be the end game of this whole ecosystem.
And for those of you that are watching, that's like, what's a T-share? A T-share in Hex just simply indicates how much yield you get for staking your Hex. The more T-shares you have, the larger your yield. So there's more to it than that, but just as a really simple explanation.
So we know Hex is been in operation for 3 years, 100% up, flawless uptime. It's immutable. It's been working beautifully. It's stood the test of time. Hedron and Icosa have not stood the test of time yet. This is a new protocol. Will it succeed? Probably, but there is a possibility it could not. Where I know when I got my massive HSI stake that is Hex, that's in a very safe place. I got at a serious discount. You know, this was like mind-blowing, you know, that I even got that discount. Like, do I put it back into the Icosa protocol? That's more for me a degen move or more of a gamble. Like, obviously, if it pays off, it's going to pay off a much bigger than what it would keeping the HSI stake. But the HSI stake is the more safe route. I'm already doing a lot of risk. I got a pretty big position in Icosa and Hedron. In fact, when I made this decision, I was like, okay, if I keep this HSI stake, I'm going to throw in more of my dry capital to Icosa.
Okay.
Just to offset my, because I was going crazy. You remember I texted you. I was like, dude, I don't know what to do. Like, I was texting a bunch of people. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, do I throw it in there? Or do I like, like I was going crazy, right? But I finally, you know, I made the decision. It's like the whole, the guys who play the Bitcoin and altcoin market. They'll go out and make money in altcoins so they can feed it back into Bitcoin. And then that's kind of feel like what our ecosystem is with Hex. Hex is like kind of our Bitcoin. We go out and we play in the ecosystem that's attached to it, make money from it, and then feed it back in to the Hex. So that's kind of my thought process. Also, what I considered is, what if Richard Hart announces V3 tomorrow? What's going to happen to the Hex price? It's going to moon. With my HSI, I have liquidity. Icosa will moon with Hex. It follows Hex like a stable coin. It might have a small discount. That's possible. But it will go up with Hex. And I have liquidity. And if Hex does a 10, 15, what if Hex does a 20x before the fork? That's a long shot.
Sure.
I could sell that HSI stake at a 20x, bro, and then roll that money into Pulsechain. Boom.
Huge.
Over. So I have that short-term option with that, where if I'm staked in Icosa, that large of a stake, I would have a year minimum before I could pull out the liquidity.
Right.
So I like having those options. I was thinking about that too. I was like, okay, it's nice to have a short-term option plan. Plus, keeping it gives me the long-term play too. I got it at a serious discount. I'm going to throw an extra dry capital that I wasn't planning on throwing in there to help offset my mindset of like missing opportunity. I hate missing opportunity. I'm a degen too, man. It's like you sometimes have to talk me off ledges for sacrifices. You know this. You're like, Corey, quit sacrificing so much. Every sacrifice you do, you're losing economic energy for Pulsechain. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I got to stop.
Right.
And so, like, yeah, so I had to kind of like, you know, it was tough, man. I think either play is a correct play. It's just like, what is correct for you? And no one can ever answer that question, what is correct for you? You have to sit down and analyze all the options and come to your own conclusion. Nobody can tell you your conclusion. You can ask advice and stuff, that's fine. But you need to come to your own conclusion, what's going to work for you. Both plays work beautifully.
Right. Agreed. Let's talk. Well, you made a quick comment. I want to talk just briefly. We'll be here for what? It's been 24 minutes.
24 minutes.
Yeah, we'll be here for a little bit longer, but not too much longer. So a couple of things I want to make sure we hit. So you said that you thought that the Hex price will just go bananas once Richard releases V3 Pulsechain. Let's talk about that. So everyone and their dog thought that Hedron was going to moon going into the bulk of these HSI auctions, and it didn't. And in fact, I ran a Twitter poll.
I saw that poll.
Did you see it? Did you see how it finished?
Mm-mm.
So in fact, I was looking at it this morning because I want to talk about it today. So I ran a Twitter poll to be able to see what people thought in regards to what the price action would do to Hex once it launched, or once V3 came out. So I said everybody thought Hedron would pump into the HSI auctions. It didn't happen. Everyone seems to think the Hex price explodes when V3 Pulsechain testnet is released or Pulsechain officially launches. What do you think? And the two options were Hex price pump or no price impact. 33% said Hex price pump, and the rest said 67% said no price impact. That was over 21 votes. So not a ton of voters. But I thought that was interesting. 67% are thinking that Hex does not moon when V3 comes out. Talk about your thoughts.
Let's break that down a little bit. Yeah. So, okay. In the Icosa and Hedron protocol, we probably only have a percentage, I don't know what the percentage is, of Hexakins and Pulsachins, or whatever you want to call them, the whole RH ecosystem, who are playing in that, who are watching that ecosystem. It's the Hex and the Icosa and Hedron protocol is a pretty deep game theory project.
Oh, it's advanced. It's very advanced as far as crypto goes.
Not a lot of people. Your retail Hetzakin or retail Richard Hart guy who's just wanting to get into pulse chains, probably not playing in there. Probably not. The average just so.
Or the majority of them. The majority of them.
You got to look at, like, if you compare the Hedron Telegram chat where there's maybe 5,000 to the Pulse Chain Telegram chat where there's over 60,000. That tells you the ratio difference of how many people are really interested in Pulse Chain. Now, we can look at history. When V2 was announced, it pumped like crazy. It went up over 20 cents. It was insane when V2 was announced. Also, every sacrifice he's done has pumped Hex to the effing moon. So anytime Richard Hart comes out with something new or getting ready for something, everyone's following, everyone's anxious, everyone's like, they still want their copies. That is still the narrative in the Hex community.
Well, there's one caveat to that. So when the Pulsechain sacrifice happened, Hex dumped after the first day. All the guys, all the whales were going to sacrifice. They did, and then Hex price dumped.
But they pumped it up at 30 cents before. I remember Mandalorian was talking about this at the PulseCon. I was talking to Mando about this, and he was like, "Yeah," he goes, "I had my friend buy Hex at like 5 cents and wrote it all up to 30 cents for the Pulse X sacrifice, and I got him in at a multiple." I was like, "Wow, I bought the top of that."
Right.
So they still pumped it for the Pulse X sacrifice. They just dumped it before. This is the key. The buy the rumor, sell the news. Everyone tries to wait for the event. You sell before the event.
If you're gonna play the game, you got to front run it.
You got to front run the event. So that's what happened in Pulse X sacrifice. It was we bought the top going into it, where actually the buy the rumor, sell the news happened before it.
Right.
So I believe now we're in a bear market, and anything can happen, right? So there's always a possibility that it doesn't pump. But I'll tell you, I'll give you 90% that it will pump more, definitely more than Hedron and Icosa or Hedron pump. Like there's way more probability that it's going to pump versus what Hedron pumping into these HSI auctions.
Sure.
Way more probability. You're going to have whales. You're going to be coming in trying to get Hex, trying to get those copies and trying to do ratio tradings before the bridge. That's a lot of people want to do ratio trading before the bridge,
right?
And they're going to use they want to use Hex. That's what's been taught, and who knows? Maybe not. It's hard to say, but I'm prepared if it does pump because my theory, which is against all the other Hexakins in the community, I don't think the Ethereum Hex is going to have a very successful long-term use case once the Pulse Chain Hex is around. That is, that's against what everyone thinks in the community.
Sure.
I'll probably get backlash for it, but I just
they're going to crucify you, bro.
I know. But
that's how you feel. Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. Pulsechain Hex is going to be absolutely phenomenal. There's another opportunity there that we can go to. That's a whole nother show, probably.
Yeah, we can talk about that more later. I want to talk about, let's wrap this part up, and then I want to talk about the Icosa floor price and speculate there.
Icosa floor price. So
yeah, let's talk about that. So, okay. So this is, tell me if you have a different thought, but generally in a yield project like this, where we're staking, the inflation in the beginning is massive.
Yeah.
And with that inflation being massive, it simply means that people are getting really high rewards for being a part of the pool. And with those really high rewards, you have people that are just going to dump it to try to get value, to take profits, or to roll it into something else, or whatever. There's a million reasons that why you could dump the tokens. And so we see that happening now with Icosa. In fact, when Icosa launched, I think it launched at like $2. And like you mentioned earlier in the video, it's hovering around, like 80-ish cents, clear up to about $1.
Yeah.
And the question in my head, and I don't know the answer, I don't think anybody does, the market will determine it, but where does that floor price happen? How far does the Icosa price fall before we find a floor? And then we start heading up. And I think that largely is going to be tied to Hex and Pulsechain launch. Because like you're saying, if Pulsechain V3 comes out and Hex starts moving up and to the right, Icosa's tied to it, it'll start, in my opinion, I think it'll start moving as well. And that'll be interesting to see. Give me your thoughts.
See, that's yeah, because there's two huge dynamics there. I don't think anybody can really project what kind of floor price we're going to see or what's going to happen if V3 comes and mainnet comes, right? That's huge. I don't think there's any kind of like what can we anticipate what's going to happen with the Icosa and Hedron, and it's just going to be bananas, man. It's going to be the Wild West, and anything can happen. And but I do believe people will be buying up Icosa too with Hex, because there is a whole community behind supporting that project. So there will be a lot of buy pressure there. Floor price, I don't know, because that's the big unknown, I think. And that's kind of where, for me, it's a new project. We don't know. And with any new project, there is a risk factor. I'm not fudding. It's not what I'm trying to do, but there's a risk factor to any new project. We don't know what the future of that project is. Is there going to be enough buy demand, people buying up the project or the Icosa? Is there enough buy demand to offset the sell demand from all the inflation?
Right.
This is going to be crucial for the health and longevity of the project. And we won't know that until we get there. But we do have this, which is amazing. By the time a lot of our inflation is coming out, the majority of it's about a year. I would say a year to 8 months to a year, because the project was created about 3 months ago. A lot of people were creating a lot of Icosa and creating these stakes. So 8 months to a year. The good news is to support that I think it will be really supported on Pulsechain. So if Pulsechain comes, that's going to be super bullish for the whole ecosystem. And then a year from now, we should have already hit a bottom, and we should be start running sideways. Maybe we're trending up a little bit, but a lot of the bearish sentiment is kind of starting to leave the marketplace. And so we have this, maybe some new money coming in, people wanting to participate a little bit more, plus Pulsechain's here. So that's what we got going for us as this project and all this inflation is coming out and being dumped into the marketplace.
Right.
If all this inflation was coming out now and being dumped in the marketplace, I'd be a lot more bearish on the project.
Agreed.
Yeah, but it's coming out. I think the timing's really good. I think we have really good timing as far as the inflation coming out, and people who really believe in the project are going to love buying up cheap Icosa, because then you just go and restake it and get this massive yield. If you can get Icosa at a 70% discount, like I did that Hex stake, I mean, people are going to love that. They're going to go and buy it up, and they're going to go in there and restake it, and hopefully that creates the buy demand. I think we'll fluctuate at a floor price. If I had to give a projection, probably anywhere, I think the 50% level, I don't see it ever really going below the 50% level. I could be wrong.
I
But I think I could go to 50% level and then kind of bounce back up to the 80%. Right now we're at the 80% to like 100%. It's kind of fluctuating there, but with more sell pressure, maybe we get down to the 50%. And, you're going to have a time period there where you can really capitalize on that opportunity and buy it up. And then remember, this project's going to work in cycles. The auctions will work in cycles, and the massive unstake inflation, to the marketplace will also work in cycles. So those will work in like yearly cycles. It will be every 8-month cycle, and then the auctions will work in cycles. So you'll have the opportunity to pick up at a discount during that time, and then stake it and hold it. And then if you want to sell it when you're out of the cycle, you're going to be more closer or maybe at peg to hex. So you could play the game really if you. So that's kind of my theory on it. But like I said, 2 bullish things are going for it because it's 8 months to a year out. Pulsechain in the bear market bottom should have been in by then. I'm hoping. We don't know for sure.
I'm hoping too. Yeah, I'm hoping too.
Things we don't know for sure.
Right. No, a lot of speculation right now.
A lot of speculation. But, if we look at history as far as the cryptocurrency markets, we should be we should be at a bottom by then. And then we know Pulsechain, I think Richard's really close. It's, with all the FUD and everything going on, I think he's close. My opinion, I think we see a V3 for Christmas, man.
That's what I
think we see a V3 for Christmas, but
I'm really torn because I keep thinking, bro, we all keep thinking we're gonna see stuff earlier than it's happened. And
I know.
Who freaking knows?
We gotta have hopium, bro.
Oh, totally. I agree. But no, my hope was that we saw V3 in November sometime. I mean, we theoretically still have half the month that could occur. And Richard even said, with them forking Ethereum now instead of Binance Smart Chain, that theoretically, the project launch could be faster than originally anticipated. So I hope that's the case, and we see V3 sometime this year and then launch early next. He's got to be timing the market. In fact, I saw a Twitter post. I thought this was I liked the speculation here. The person, I don't remember who tweeted it, so I can't give them credit, but they had said that they thought that Richard was timing the market, but he can't say that because then you have Howey test issues for security purposes where he's giving an expectation.
Yep.
And
100%.
so I thought that was keen. And so yeah, I could totally see that. I think that's interesting.
My theory, and once again, I'm probably gonna get a little bit of hate for it. I think he was timing the ETH merge. I think he gave us the Binance fork to kind of like, obviously they were doing some work in the background. They want to test some things with the code, but not the underlying code. And they wanted to give us something to play with. He knew what was going on in the background with Ethereum and my project. I really feel like he was timing the ETH merge. We're there now. So now I think the building started to begin. That's my thing.
I think that he gave himself 2 options. I think that they were building the BSC chain, the BSC fork.
Maybe.
And I think that because we've seen, bro, like they've talked about, I mean, how long has Ethereum been talking about making this update? It's been years. Since
like 5 years or 3 years. So yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been years. And so if I'm Richard and I am going to be building Pulsechain, I think the idea of forking the Binance Smart Chain blockchain and trying to optimize that makes a ton of sense. And I think you build that and say, hey, like if we beat Ethereum to market, or we beat their update to market with Pulsechain, and the BSC fork is ready, then we'll freaking run with it. However, if we can copy the proof of stake Ethereum chain, that would be preferable. And so you could play both hands just depending upon where you're at.
Back to the AB team that he's always talking about.
Yep. Yeah, literally.
And the AB team. A team was like, hey, you guys are on Binance. B, you're waiting for Ethereum. If it comes, beat the Binance team, guys. I don't know. It's like,
who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? And they did say, I remember when they had to be doing some kind of work with the fork on Binance, because I remember when they came out and there was some announcement. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Dev Kyle or somebody said they had found a lot of errors or a lot of
And
problems
bugs.
in the code or bugs in the
Right.
Binance chain that they were trying to fix and rectify. So that could have been the actual truth, that they were going along trying to do fork Binance. They're like, man, there's so many freaking bugs here. What do we do? And then
Right.
Rich was like, you know what, guys, let's do the ETH merge. Just hold off. We'll let them play with V2B for a while, and then like let's get this done right. I want it done right,
Yeah.
like more than anybody. Like let's not get stuff out there with bugs, or it's going to promote more scams. Get things in the system that's just going to rinse people, or people lose their money. Let's just get a nice blockchain. I love Ethereum. I think of it as like getting Ethereum, but faster and cheaper. Come on, like
Come
that
on,
is
man.
beautiful.
Full
Like
system stay copy, get your coins and the projects. Come on, man.
yeah, man, because it's I have problems onboarding people to Ethereum. Like my brother, for example, he's just getting the crypto and he's starting with a few thousand. He'll go bigger as he moves along. He wants to be comfortable, but it's like when we're doing a swap for $1,000 into something like Icosa, and then there's like a $30 ETH charge. I'm like, man, that's killing your bag.
Right.
I'm killing your bag already out of your $1,000. It's one thing if you're buying 100,000 and you got a $30 transaction fee. The ratio is not really there. But when you're buying 1,000, and you got people who maybe want to buy $100 worth, and you got a $30 swap, you can't
30%
bring
gone.
people in
Yeah.
the ecosystem.
Mhm.
It's the ecosystem's built now in a way for only rich people.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Dude, especially in the next bull run, if you're freaking paying, $100 to $500 for a gas fee for one transaction, like there's
Now,
just a lot
I
of money that can't
believe
come in.
I'm also the opposite and everyone in the community. I believe Ethereum will fix the gas fees. It will happen in time.
In
You know,
time.
people are like, oh, 15-year stakes, your unstake's going to be, 15 grand or whatever they're fudding about. I'm like, nah, I believe Ethereum's going to get their shit together. They want adoption. They want to keep cranking along. They're going to fix the fees. It might be 3 years, maybe 5 years. I feel like there'll be a time when the fees will be fixed.
I agree. No, I agree. I think that'd be interesting to see. I had one more thing that was in my brain that I want to talk about before we jumped off.
FTX.
Yeah, can we touch on FTX real
That
quick?
little shit show, man.
What a freaking mess.
So,
What a
I
dude,
gotta, yeah.
So,
Go.
okay, let's give a really quick summary of what's going on there, what's happened. There's a million asset or components to FTX's collapse. So FTX was the second or third world's largest crypto exchange in
Might
the
have been
world.
the first for United States, first or second largest United States.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's a huge deal. It's a centralized exchange where you can come and onboard your fiat, which is just like your government-backed currency, so like the dollar for United States people. You can turn your dollars into crypto, and then you can go back and turn your crypto into dollars. The problem is, anytime you're on a centralized exchange, when you sign the user agreement to become a customer, the user agreement usually says that if they go bankrupt, they can take all the crypto and essentially pay their debts and largely do whatever they want with it.
What a crazy agreement.
Oh, it's crazy. And nobody knows what they're signing when they jump in. They have no idea until they lose all the money, like this scenario. So billions of dollars. And it's so unfortunate. People like, just regular people that didn't have a ton of money to their name necessarily, and people that had tons of money to their name.
Yeah, you see it on Twitter, man. A lot of people lost their life
gone.
savings again in another stupid, which they would have never thought of, right? Because it's a centralized exchange. Like you look at Luna and that crash and debacle, you're like, okay, well, that was like a kind of its own little crazy Ponzi DeFi thing that was going on. But a centralized exchange, which is supposed to be like a bank, basically, right? Bank for crypto. This is what crashed and is wiping out the crypto market. You wouldn't have thought of it really, except for Richard Hart called it. I mean, he called it. He talked about it back in June or something, and then it was referencing almost right to Sam Bankman-Fried, which is kind of crazy.
No, I think it was a year ago. I think there was
posts. Was it a year ago? Maybe it was.
He called it a year ago, which is
calling every single. He called the Luna crash. He called BlockFi. That's a whole nother topic in
He's got a
itself.
crystal ball. It's nuts.
I don't know what he's got, bro. Calling Bitcoin tops and, calling bottoms a year ago. He called the bottom a year ago, and now we're almost there. Like, this guy is like freaking crypto Nostradamus. Really. He's just like on point. But yeah, it's very unfortunate with the FTX crash. A lot of people had a lot of money in there. I used to use that exchange to get money in and out. Yeah, I liked it. It for me, it was very clean, and it was user friendly. And so I used to use it before I discovered Trust Token, which is what I use now to get in and out of crypto. We could do a whole show on that sometime. But I used to use them, and yeah, man. And the problem is that they were in bed with so many other cryptocurrency projects and other exchanges and other, just protocols that it's collapsing everything around it. It's almost like a contagion. It's a disease. Now that this is gone, it's just spreading throughout the community. And
do you know why that's happening? Do you know the specifics behind it?
Just because a lot of money is invested. For example, Solana. They're a big investor in Solana. Right. Huge investor. Solana was like a VC capitalist type raising in the beginning, kind of like our sacrifice is, but they're more towards the institutional money. And FTX was one of them. They owned 20%.
It's huge.
20%. So FTX is now insolvent, and all that's going. Solana's still holding pretty well. I think it touched down like $6 or something, $6 or $7. It was trading at like $300 in the last bull market.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
One of my buddies crushed it in Solana, and he flipped his Solana holdings over to the Pulsechain sacrifice. We went to lunch the other day, and I was like, bro,
Godwell move.
How do you feel about that?
That's a Godwell move right there, man. That's what he does. He goes early on projects, holds them up to the big gains, takes them out, and then he takes those gains and puts them right in early into another project. Yep. That's all he does. He keeps rinsing, repeating. He was day one Genesis Ethereum guy, and I mean, just a great way to play crypto. That's how you play the game.
Yeah,
that's how you play the game.
No, but okay, so this is another component of FTX they're talking about on Twitter, and I haven't researched this heavily, so I don't know if it's 100% accurate. But from what I'm hearing, a lot of these companies, these crypto companies or blockchains or projects that FTX was in bed with, FTX would, in order for FTX to participate, they would force those guys to take their liquidity, and they would force them to hold it on FTX exchanges.
Okay.
And so not only were they big investors in projects, but then a lot of these projects had to take their extra liquidity, stick it on FTX, and with the insolvency, it's freaking gone. And so you have these companies that not only was FTX a big investor, but now all their liquidity is dried up because they had it on FTX exchange. And the contagion, like you're talking about, it's like a cancer. It's spreading to so many places. And I think we're yet to see the bottom really fall out in crypto. I think we still have a lot of damage to take over the next few months.
This was the catalyst.
Yeah.
This was the catalyst. It's going to be a domino effect. Yeah, it's there's FUD in the space about how FTX owned a large bag of USDT. And that USDT could be the next, like, because they're a fractionalized reserve, and FTX owned a lot of the supply, and that they could end up losing peg. I don't believe that will ever happen. I could be wrong. You want to spread your risk out with stable coins. I always tell everybody, you don't keep all your eggs in one basket. I try not to. But you don't ever know, man. If something like USDT failed and that crashed, that would be catastrophic to people. And, so there's a lot of FUD out there that's going around the FTX. I believe some of it will come true, some won't. But this was definitely a catalyst that is starting what I think the theme for this bear market is called. I call this the theme, the collapse of the exchanges. The collapse of centralized exchanges. And what's good. This is extremely bullish for what we're involved in, which is DeFi and layer ones. Anything layer one, DeFi, like Pulsechain, the Ethereum blockchain, AVAX, if you're into that one, all these Phantom and just being in the DeFi world off exchanges, it's going to be massively bullish in the next bull run for all these protocols.
Oh, it's big. And in fact, I
big.
think you were probably in the Twitter space with me the other day. Richard Hart was in there talking with some of these guys that are like the who's who in crypto. A bunch of them have called him a scammer and said that he is this
It's funny how that
person.
sentiment's starting to calm down.
And it's softening. A lot of them were like, oh, like Richard called this, and now like we agree with Richard. And it's just like, it's baffling to me how so many people have a hard time looking past their own ego to be able to say, like, you know, what's right and what's true. And so many people, I mean, you see it in real estate. I can't tell you how many times we've done a deal and the deal was like falling apart at some point, and I had to call the other person and I had to say, like, bro, are you here to make money? Are you here to feed your ego? If you're here to make money, then let's do the deal. Or you can choose to lose it because of your ego. And so many of these idiot influencers have lost boatloads of money because they didn't trust Richard. And you see that sentiment softening.
Absolutely. You nailed it, man. It's ego, you know, and they want to stick to their thesis, because if they go back on what their original thesis was or their original call against Richard, then they are wrong.
Right.
They don't want to set their wrong 3 years into the movie, or maybe even longer than 3 years into the movie, because he had been talking about Hex a year before. So maybe 4 years into the movie, they don't want to go, oh, I was wrong this whole time, because that takes a big hit on the ego, like you said. So it's really funny.
Oh, it's hard.
Some of them are starting to soften and starting to accept it a lot more, and start to say, because what's still standing through all the fire right now? Hex.
The DeFi stuff. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, as Hex, obviously there's some stuff going on with some of the influencers, but that's it. That's it with some of the influencers. But the project itself is freaking amazing. Still,
right.
Yeah. So,
and if you guys are watching this show, let me give you just a real quick summary of what DeFi is. There's tons of components, so like, don't crucify me if I haven't covered everything. But DeFi is essentially taking out your third-party risk and interacting with smart contracts. Smart contracts are just the code that people utilize. They make contracts via the code with blockchain to make it so that, you know, you're not interacting with an FTX or some other third party that could stop your transactions or freeze it or take it away. You literally are just going to a contract. Usually you access the contract through a website. You can connect your wallet. You can go interact with the contract, do whatever you're going to do. And there is no counterparty risk when you're using crypto via DeFi, because you don't have a third party that could cause problems. Now, there's plenty of other risks. You know, is the contract built good? Could it be hacked? Could it be a scam? You know, like that doesn't make it like 100% fail safe, or, you know, but it decreases one of the components that can have a large amount of risk in crypto. So that's what we do with our group, where we have a private group that we're talking about crypto all the time. I'm helping my students where we just do DeFi. We focus on DeFi to be able to mitigate our risk.
Absolutely.
So this is probably a good place to kind of wrap things up. If you like what we're talking about, you want to jump into, you know, our group to talk about crypto, to talk about strategy. No one will ever give you any financial advice, but it's an opportunity to increase your education, to try to put you in a place where you can make more educated decisions for you and for your own family. So if you want to jump into that, or you need help with coaching in order to figure out the crypto landscape, get a strategy, and figure out your security so that you could put yourself in a really safe position or safer position, then send me a message. I'll help you with all that. Students are crushing it right now with Icosa and Hedron and getting some pretty incredible opportunities. Go ahead and shout yourself out, Corey.
Yeah, man. Just follow me on Facebook. Obviously, Corey Geary. Instagram is the Corey Geary. If you want to really follow me and my crypto information, obviously it's gonna be Twitter. Twitter is where I keep crypto information. My set of socials are more real estate. As most of you guys know, I'm real estate. That's my main job, my main full time. My crypto is my future.
Corey's got 2 full-time jobs right now.
I do. Real estate's been very kind to me, though. I got, it's been a beautiful, beautiful journey, but crypto's my new journey. And so follow me on Twitter for all my crypto stuff, which is still at Corey Geary. You'll follow me there. And then YouTube, and I'll be starting to do some more content, Crypto Millionaires with Corey Geary. I'm going to be doing something coming up. Probably the next big one, it will be just on security. I want to talk about, I'm going to do a video on hardware wallets, how to interact with the blockchain safely, how to do security, because self-custody and security should be the number one thing we're taught before anything else in crypto. And I want to make sure that the foundation of my YouTube channel is going to be based, in the beginning all around security. So you can't become rich if you can't keep your money. If someone's renting you and taking your money, it's hard to create wealth that way. So we got to create a good foundation and then build on the foundation. So
absolutely. Cool, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you later.
Okay.